FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. We're back from Vancouver. What a trip. Hey, I don't know if you've been watching gold or not. If you haven't been, you certainly should be. Well, it was up $30 the ounce today. They've pushed it back to 16.5. Just wait till you see where it closes. Silver is up 9 cents. So gold was 14.60 and change. Now it's 14.56.40 on the bid. Silver 16.28. You're going to be hearing about some incredible companies that we spoke with, companies that were really leveraged. One company I know today, their profits went up 35%, literally in a day with the price of gold. He's been sitting on gold bars at the mine in Arizona, and now you're going to see profits for this company, new producer, just skyrocket to the stratosphere. A lot more stories like that out there that you need to be aware of. Hey, as always, we encourage your emails. I've got, I don't know, I'm about 60 or 70 behind. I tried to keep up while I was away, but I couldn't. But we will be kicking back at our local undisclosed coffee shop and answering your emails in due course. That's a promise. So, hey, we love podcasters. You know, we've been podcasting. This is our 9th year. And it's always great to see new people join the space. But when they also have a strategy that can help you provide for your future, help you really get out of the mainstream paradigm, really build wealth and learn valuable skills, then we're twice blessed. And, well, without further ado, we've got Nichole Stohler with us now. Nichole, your podcast is The Richer Geek, and you find Nichole's work over at therichergeek.com. Nichole, it's great to have you on. So, look, you got an interesting story, from rags to riches to some rags, back to riches again, which is always a good story because, look, anybody can make it. I've seen it happen. First time you do it, you often think it's an accident. When you do it the second, third, fourth, fifth time, all of a sudden it's a pattern. There's no accidents in life, and that's what you quickly learn. So, hey, tell us, you're got a really good job with a major tech company. Tell us about your situation, your husband, what you went through.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to think where to start. So I will start from the very beginning, but I'll make that part short. Mm-hmm. Essentially, our story starts with having no money right out of college, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad in 1999, taking a real estate seminar where we learned all about creative ways to buy property, coming back, implementing those strategies that we learned, yet not knowing how to fully analyze a property, manage a property, and make it profitable. So buying is one thing, and all those other things are another piece that we did not know, understand, and nor were actually covered in the seminar. So we ended up effectively giving those properties back because we couldn't really meet the obligations, that we couldn't get them fully rented. They were huge, huge challenge. From there, we decided, hey, we were still really committed to real estate investing. We just understood that we didn't know what we were doing and we needed to get help. This was, again, 1999, 2000. There weren't the resources available today. There weren't the turnkey type of providers that exist today, the coaching, mentoring, none of that was actually really available at that point in time. We decided the best route for us was for my husband to go work in property management. So he did do that in large multifamily properties. And that is a really excellent way to get an education around all those optimization strategies that we didn't understand at the time.
Hey, so my father used to say, anytime you get into a new business, you're going to pay for lessons. So you paid through the nose. And it's interesting, hearkening back to the turn of the millennium. Yes, we had the internet, but the idea of getting valuable knowledge easily and inexpensively was kind of, it was in its nascency, in its beginnings. And the internet was a whole different animal. So when you started out, you didn't have that luxury. And you also had the luxury of youth and enthusiasm, even though you were kind of ignorant, if you will. So what was the biggest mistake that you made back in those early years?
I would say the biggest mistake was being too excited about the buying strategy. So I'll tell you what it was. Basically, we learned around creative ways to buy property with, little money. Some of those ways that we were able to, and again, at that point in time, we found a local university that had several homes that had been bequeathed when people had died. They left them in their trust to the university, and the university had actually no interest in continuing to maintain and run those homes. So they were kind of what you'd call a motivated seller, and they offered seller financing, which we thought was amazing. And that was part of that strategy, right? We did have to put down payments, some small down payment, but we didn't actually have any money. So we used credit card cash advances to do that at that point in time.
You leveraged leverage.
Yes.
My grandfather used to say, anytime you're paying interest on interest, and he only had an 8th grade education, you got a problem. And effectively, that's what you were doing. And that strategy can work well in good times, but you're over leveraged and you don't even know it. So credit is your friend in real estate, but excessive credit is a bigger enemy.
Absolutely. The other thing is just because you can find a property like that and you can get into it for a very low amount, doesn't mean you should buy that property. That was our biggest problem.
Yeah, because you didn't know the basics of real estate, of having positive cash flow, of repair allowances, you probably self-managed, so you probably didn't have to worry about management fees. But, you could, just because you can buy a really great car for no money down and it looks really good and the service records are great, maybe it's used, doesn't mean that you should. And it's the same thing with real estate. Just because you can get it for very little money down, very little out of pocket, doesn't mean you should. So what types of things happened when you didn't, once you took title to these properties, you didn't know exactly what you were doing?
So that's a great question. So one of them was completely vacant and it was a 4-plex. So that particular property required some work, but the challenge was it was not in an area that was going to be easy to rent. It was, I would say, kind of a D-class property. So it was a challenging area to be in, a little bit scary. And we were not going to be dealing with the kind of residents that provide stable income.
In other words, you got a place in a potential war zone. And
exactly.
That's never a good idea. C properties, okay, as long as the neighborhood isn't too shaky. But when you get into war zones, it could be dangerous there. Collecting rent becomes a major issue. All these little things that in higher quality properties, you're going to get a little less cash flow in theory, but you're going to have higher vacancy rates. You're going to be evicting people, right? All these things. So this was an eye opener. Wait a second. Real estate, you could lose money doing this stuff, right?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Financial Survival Network is brought to you today by Orin Resources, a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major. It's hot on the trail of the next globally significant discovery, creating enormous potential upside for you, the shareholder. Orin is one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management has a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets. No wonder Orin's been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and the NYSE under AUG. To learn more, go to orinresources.com. That's AURYN resources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Absolutely. And eye opener about types of neighborhoods, right? Because we just didn't have the knowledge to really thoroughly understand that.
Yeah.
Even rent analysis, right? And
Sure.
what could be the actual financial analysis? Repairs. A lot of these were much older homes that had a tremendous amount of deferred maintenance
Mm-hmm.
that now suddenly we had to take care of. My husband's up replacing a roof, which is not his expertise, but we're trying to save money, right? So it just a complete disaster, really, when you think about all of the things that we did wrong.
Yeah, well, you have to learn someplace. What I really give you credit for, though, is, hey, you lost your shirts your first time out, but you didn't give up. And instead, your husband, Mike, got a job managing property to learn more about this arcane skill set. You need a lot of different qualities when you're managing property, especially residential. I mean, you got to be part psychologist, psychiatrist, part lawyer, part construction manager, and part maid, basically, because you got to keep the places clean, and landscaper, all these things, because sometimes you can't get the people to do these small jobs, and you got to do them yourself or have the place start to look run down. So it must have been a real eye-opener for your husband.
Absolutely. One of the greatest skill sets I believe that he developed coming out of that was then when we would buy our own smaller apartment complexes, not to the scale as what he was managing,
Mm-hmm.
but large enough that we could have an on-site targeted person. I wouldn't say not like a full-time employee. In one of the apartment complexes, there was an office, but he was really good about training people to kind of take that pride of ownership and being part of the community. And he understood the dynamics of, in the multifamily space, you have a community, you have people talking to each other, you have rumors, you have all of those kinds of things that happen when people are living in a close proximity. And he understood how to, develop that and to, again, try and create that pride of ownership.
Yeah. So that was a good thing. And I guess he learned a lot of skills that were applicable to your situation too then. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So from there, you're bouncing back. You still had jobs. You're rebuilding at the earlier part of the 2000s. What happened when the financial crisis hit?
During the financial crisis, we only had a few residential, so a few things that we learned back to that earlier situation. Single family homes, I really do like those as an investment. They're a bit more to maintain if you're self-managing than commercial properties, and so the scale isn't always there. However, I do feel like it's really one of the safest places to be, especially if you're in a B-class neighborhood. It's a long-term buy and hold. As long as you've got enough delta between your mortgage and your rent, the rent payment, it doesn't really matter what happens to the value of the home,
right?
Because you don't care as long as you're still making cash flow. The only thing I would say is we were so focused really during the kind of the upswing and the opportunity to buy, then we were buying more in apartment complexes. And if I think back, I would have bought more homes because you could buy homes in Arizona at that point in time between $20,000 and $50,000, and they're now worth $250,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I worked with a guy who bought up tons of foreclosures in Maricopa, the city of Maricopa, Arizona, during the whole meltdown, and just cleaned up, really cleaned up these, buying them for under 100,000, 50, 60,000, and just really did incredibly well. So totally know what you're talking about there, but nonetheless, your strategy turned out to be a defensive strategy as far as the Great Recession was concerned. Yeah, the values of your property went down, but rents didn't go down. You must probably had more, or depending on how many units you had, more turnover of tenants, maybe slight decrease in rentals. I mean, that's what we saw in Florida, but it really worked. So hey, my hat's off to you. Not only did you learn the lessons from your prior prior defeat, but you better than learned them because you were ready for the next financial calamity and maybe the next one, which could be coming at us at any moment. So from there, we get to your podcast here, and tell us how that got hatched, how you end up doing that.
Well, I am working full time in tech, and I know a lot of people that have had an interest in getting started investing in real estate. And Mike and I have the experience, more so on the commercial side, but I do have those single family, and we're able to, provide ideas and strategies around that. And I've met with so many people. We would go to coffee or to lunch. And what I thought was interesting, though, is people wanted to know about other strategies that Mike, my husband, and I have not actually done in our real estate investing careers. Like, we've never flipped homes. That was never part of our strategy, which, that is high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
But we've always been long-term buy and hold investors. We've never done Airbnb. Now, we own hotels. That is a part of our strategy, but not Airbnb. So it's been interesting when people ask me about, those particular niches. And I thought to myself, I'm not in those, but I know people who are. And I know people who are in IT who are in those niches. So I had this idea to bring those stories to light and to encourage people who work in technology, which these are high-paying jobs. There's a lot of change constantly in our industry, and a lot of discussion around continuing to increase your skill set because you don't know what's going to happen. Technology changes so fast. I feel like you need a plan B no matter what. Even if your job is 100% safe, which no one can guarantee that for years and years and years.
Of course not. Yeah.
So my idea was, how do I share stories of other people working full-time in tech who are doing something to build wealth? So real estate investing is one, owning a small business is another, becoming a speaker or an author is another. Maybe having a podcast would be another. Just doing something, essentially creating a business, which real estate investing is a business, podcast is a business, et cetera, and creating that so that you're basically adding multiple income streams and you're not putting yourself at risk because you only have your W-2 income.
Yeah, multiple income streams, as I say in the book Viral Podcasting, is really the key to successful podcasting, but it's also the key to successful investing in life and some diversification. Timing is very difficult in any market. I've seen it over and over again. I've suffered it myself, where the key is, if the things go way up in price, you got to take a profit. If you're in real estate and they go way up, but you're still getting a really good cash flow, you don't have to take a profit. You can let it ride, but sometimes it makes sense to sell. Have you ever sold anything? What's your criteria for disposing of an asset?
Yes, we have sold, but moved right into a 1031 exchange in the real estate side. The criteria is, especially during the past, I'd say 4 years, when the price of different asset classes continued to go up, is someone approaches you. Most of the time, for us, it was an unsolicited offer because we do like to maintain the portfolio. And we did receive an unsolicited offer. Someone else was under 1031 exchange, so they were under time pressure. They were coming from another state. 3 times came back to us and offered to buy our 50-unit apartment complex. That was a great complex, but then there's a part of you that says, wow, are they crazy? They want to pay this much? Should I take that? And then one of the things that we try to do before taking that is look at the market. Is there anything we would want? Does anything look good? And we try to invest locally. Yeah. So we stay within the Arizona market. And that is actually how we ended up with a hotel. So we had already, for about 2 years, been kicking around the idea, networking with someone who has a lot of experience in hotels. So when we received the unsolicited offer 3 times, finally took it the 3rd time, and then transitioned 1031 into a hotel.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's interesting because these opportunities Well, when you're properly poised, the opportunities just come along when they're least expected, and you kind of can't say no. But the fact is that really, if you don't get out there and you don't do something, the opportunities aren't going to come, are they?
Right.
So where do you see yourself 5 years from now? You must have some type of plan, right?
Absolutely. We're continuing right now to acquire hotels. We have a second hotel currently under contract, going through the phases of that. We will continue to do that until if we see a change in the multifamily market, then we will probably jump back into multifamily as well. I think that we're not really looking to add a bunch of different niches to our strategy.
Yeah.
For example, we're not really going after self-storage. We're not going after Airbnb. We're staying in the things that we know, only because we just had such a bad experience when we didn't know what we were doing, that we try really hard to either align ourselves with an expert or some advice, or stay in what we know. But at the same time, I'd say multifamily is a little bit challenging in the Phoenix metro market. And that's why we're not buying actively in that space, but we'll continue to add commercial properties. That's a big focus for us.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. It's certainly more challenging because the prices have gone up so high, and really the opportunities are less, and you got to look for fixer-uppers, value adds, as they call them in the trade. There's just not a lot of them out there. So, going ahead, it sounds like you've got a definite plan. Have you looked at any markets outside the Phoenix area?
We have casually looked at other markets. Mostly, we've been interested in markets that are repressed, that are starting to go down.
Right.
Those have been kind of interesting. We've actually always had an interest in Florida as well, but I think it is easier for us because we know what's happening in Phoenix. We're connected with folks. This is our network of folks that are here. We're active in business itself, involved in organizations like Rotary. Definitely have the pulse of what's going on here so that we can feel really confident. I feel like we'd have to build up or get really great advice from someone in another state. Just there's a lot of learning there that comes naturally to us in Phoenix.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. Well, hey, as far as the podcast is concerned, what's been going on there? What kind of following have you developed? Do you consider yourself to be a professional podcaster at this point?
Oh gosh, I don't think I would consider myself a professional podcaster. I did pick up your book and I was looking through it actually this weekend, and I liked your advice around the different strategies and building the following. So I'm using a lot of the platforms that you mentioned as well. But so I see constant growth that continues to come with the podcast. It's also very interesting to see which episodes are more intriguing to people than others. And I don't have a good read on that yet, if it's actually the subject or the way I've titled the headline, right? So I'm working on that. The flashy headlines or those that kind of grab more attention. But I look at my metrics absolutely, and I've had a couple of unsolicited offers for, I would say, more affiliate type of programs, which I know you talk about in your book. Ultimately, I'd like to start with sponsorship that is, specific to my niche and that brings value to the listeners.
Yeah. Well, you got to keep looking at new opportunities, new ways to do it, new guests. Co-hosting is always a way of doing it. A lot of ways to do it. Hey, anyways, well, we appreciate you coming on. Just tell us again where we find you, how we connect with you on the web.
You can find me at the Richer, RICHER, geek, GEEK.com.
All right, excellent. Hey, questions, comments for Nichole or myself, email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Nichole, we really appreciate you coming on. Good luck.
Thanks so much.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.